All right, guys, a few days since we've been out here working on the brake system, and I think I've got all the parts I need now to finish it off. But here's the thing, I need to get the steering system finished off before I can finish off the brake system, and that's because I did some very unfortunate plumbing of the front brakes, and it's going to interact very close to where the steering is. So I want to get the steering shaft in, and I want to get all that set up, and then once that's in place, we'll do our final plumbing on the brake system here. I'll give you guys the final rundown of everything that we did here on the brake system. So the issue I ran to on the steering shaft is one that's not all uncommon for any custom vehicle or any vehicle you're putting headers in, anything like that. We've got a ton of room here, right? But the issue is that with this steering shaft in, it's attached down to our fitting on the steering box down there, or on the steering rack down there. You can see that we can't get really over and in line with our column here without hitting on the headers. So I've already gone ahead and I've made, you can see that raw steel bracket on the frame there. I made that bracket to hold a 3/4 inch heim. So let me grab that heim joint. Since we're using a 3/4 inch DD shaft, it's just a 3/4 inch heim joint here. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna slide this onto the end of our shaft. So I had to purchase this heim joint separately, and then I had to purchase an additional 3/4 inch to 3/4 inch U-joint, DD U-joint, that we're going to install here just above this heim. So you can see now that with my bracket in there that's bolted to the frame, that I've got plenty of clearance here between the header and my steering shaft. Now what I can do actually is I can install one additional universal joint above my heim here that's going to connect my steering column here down to this U-joint here. So we're going to have a short little shaft here and then a long shaft from this universal joint down to our steering rack down there. So I've already marked this out to be cut, so I'm going to go ahead and cut that now. Once we've got our shaft lengths figured out and we've got all that the appropriate lengths there, what we need to do is we actually need to drill some dimples into the steering shaft here so that the set screws that we end up putting through these universal joints with red Loctite will have something to positively engage with on the steering shaft. And what that's going to do is keep the shaft in place. You want to cut the shaft flush with the opening at the top of the universal joint up here. You don't want to cut it short. You don't want to cut it long. If you leave it long, it can actually interfere with the rotation of this joint. If you cut it short, there's a chance that it'll come apart and you'll lose steering while you're on the road, and that would be very bad. All right, so I got my first shaft cut here, and it might be difficult to see, but you might be able to just see down inside here and see the shaft flush with the end of my U-joint collar here. That is the appropriate way to set up these shafts. Now, I have not yet drilled out for my set screws. I'm just trying to get everything set up. So I put my set screws in on the collar and tighten them up just to hold this shaft in place. I've got my steering column mounted where I want it in the truck. I've got my collar on the steering column where I want that, my universal joint on the steering column. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up these two shafts here, and we're going to figure out the length from the end of this collar to the end of this collar. We're going to cut a shaft for that, and then we're going to assemble this, and that will be our full steering column. And we can then go put the finishing touches on drilling out for our set screws and doing all that stuff. Here is the completed, nearly completed hydroboost system and steering system. You can see the column in there is now installed. You can see my heim joint down here. Actually, it looks like I need to make a small adjustment on that. I'll have to adjust this heim joint a little bit. It's cocked all the way to one side, so we have a little bit of adjusting to do yet. And you may notice I'm still missing one brake line, and that's because I just can't seem to find the happy medium on hose lengths here. So I'm gonna have to order yet another hose before we are able to fully complete the brake system. But We're only missing the one brake line now. Everything else is completed. We've got all of our power steering lines, a return line. I do want to put a different hose clamp on this just to clean things up a little bit. All of our lines are tightened down and everything is ready to be filled and bled. Just waiting on the one brake line, like I said, and then we'll be able to do the same with the brake system. We'll be able to fill and bleed the brake system as well. What do you guys think about my color match jack here? So this modern driveline system comes with a bleeder fitting that plugs directly into the hydraulic clutch bearing hose assembly. So it just, all you have to do is tighten that up onto the line, and then you've got a little bleeder there on the end of it. The other line here, the kit comes with a 30-inch extension hose and a 4AN to 4AN hose union. So all that is a simple union between these two. Tighten the fittings down and you're basically ready to bleed the clutch. That's the last thing that we need to do on the clutch system here. It's a new night out in the shop and I've gotten quite a bit of work done here off camera. So let me get you guys caught up. First up on the radiator here, I have pulled this shroud off. I pulled off our old Chinese fans and I fit up these Proform brushless fans. Now these brushless fans have roughly 180 watt draw per fan, okay? The old Chinese fans that were on here had an 80 watt draw. So these things are gonna be more than twice as powerful as the old fans that were on there. I kind of anticipated this. That's why when I wired the truck, we put in heavy enough gauge wire to operate these higher amperage fans. And each of these fans has its own relay in the truck. What I had to do here, I had to re-drill holes. You can see these are the original holes here, and I just marked and re-drilled some new holes. I also had to clearance the shroud a little bit because the other fans are actually a little bit smaller in diameter than these are. So what this means is that we've got more cooling surface area, more power, higher CFM fans that are gonna help us keep this FE 390 cool. At least that's the hope. The other thing I've done is I've already gone ahead under the truck and replaced that pipe plug that was in the side of the block that was leaking antifreeze on the ground. The one that gave me a heart attack the other day because we came in and there was a bunch of antifreeze on the ground. I had a brass plug in there. I should have known better. I swapped that out with a steel plug. That steel plug had a little bit bigger diameter on it at the end because the pipe plugs are tapered and it had a few more threads on it. So I ran that steel plug all the way in. We used some Teflon tape on it. I was able to get that plenty tight enough to stop that leak down on the block. So we are now ready to reassemble the radiator here. Oh, the other thing I did is I painted the front side of this radiator satin black. So once we get this installed, I'll give you a look at the front of the grill, how much better it looks. I'll do a before and after picture or something. It's a small touch, it's a little thing, but I think it's gonna make a big difference in the way the front of the grill looks when you're looking kind of at the front of the truck and through the grill. So I did go ahead and replace my thermostat housing as well. What I found was there were stripped threads in this aluminum intake. The issue though wasn't so much the intake as it was the bolts that were on that billet water neck that I have. It was a two-piece water neck that is clockable. Ultimately, I didn't need it to be clocked, and I think the O-ring seal inside that two-piece system was causing issues, as well as the bolts. They were little hex cap screws that just the threads were way too short, and I think with all that tension on a short amount of threads, it just pulled the first few threads out of the intake. So what I did was, when I put these new bolts in, I put bolts in that are about 3/4 of an inch longer. They go further back into the intake here and are able to grab more threads and actually tighten this thing to spec. I'm not so concerned about this now. I think that'll solve our problems here. So we solved our block leak. We solved our leak at the water neck housing. Hopefully we solved our cheap fan issue. Now we're gonna get it all put back together. All right, so here you can see I painted the front of the radiator satin black, and it just to me makes a huge difference for the grill. You don't have the aluminum radiator, the bright silver battling the grill here, and we still need to clean the grill up a little bit, but it allows the grill to just pop a little bit more with everything black behind it. You've got that nice black background back there, and I think it just looks a lot better than it did with the aluminum radiator sticking through the front. It's just purely an aesthetic thing for me. I didn't so much mind the raw aluminum on the backside, so what I did is I just taped off the front corner, and you really, unless you're really looking for it, you're not even gonna see it really, because it blends in with the shadow from the core support here. It just kind of blends in and your eye doesn't really catch it at all. So the backside of the radiator is still raw aluminum. I went ahead, I tested my fans, we're all good there. They fire up, they are so much more powerful than the old ones, so I'm really excited about that. So right now, basically, our cooling system, all of our repairs should be done. The next thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get the back of the truck jacked up, and we are finally gonna get the drive shaft installed in this thing. So I ordered my drive shaft through Adam's Driveshaft. I found them through Fabrettes, actually. They were featured on their channel. I thought, hey, why not give them a try? The price was right, the shipping costs were right, so it kind of worked out in my favor there. Now, I did have a billet yoke for the transmission already, so they sent me the drive shaft with the front U-joint installed on the front drive shaft, but we'll have to install that U-joint onto the yoke so we can slide that into the transmission and get the back of the drive shaft bolted up to the rear end. All right, so I was about to install the drive shaft, and we don't have any of the circlips for the front yoke and the U-joint. Let me show you here. In the Sonic's yoke, as in all transmission yokes, there's a little circlip that goes down in here. You can see it right here. Okay, if you're never taken apart a U-joint before, the caps on the U-joint come off on either side. So then you slide this yoke over the top of that, and then you press the cap on from the outside, just so it sits below the depth of the recessed slot inside this yoke, and then the circlip goes in there, and that's what retains that cap inside this yoke. One goes on either side. Now, because I bought the yoke separate from the drive shaft, usually from Adam's Driveshaft, the yoke would come on the drive shaft pre-installed, but because I already had this, I told them, hey, don't bother sending the yoke, I've already got one. So they didn't send the circlips with the U-joint, so I've got to pick some of those up, unfortunately. It's the little things like this that'll drive you crazy in a project. It's like you've got all the major parts, you think you got everything you need, and then it's something as silly as those little C-clips, circlips that you don't have, that are another trip to the parts store, and it's 10:30 at night and I can't go to the parts store. So we are going to jump onto the brake system and the clutch system. I bought a vacuum assisted bleeder. We're going to start trying to bleed the brakes and the clutch setup. Okay, we're about to use our vacuum bleeder. You can see I just installed our brake fluid reserve here. What this is going to do is it's actually going to draw fluid down as we're sucking it through the system back to the back brakes. So as a one-person system, this is pretty great actually, because you can have this reserve of fluid here. So you're not continually running back and forth, filling up the master cylinder, going back, trying to draw some more fluid out. So all we need to do is make sure that we don't run this and our master cylinder dry as we start drawing fluid back to the brake. So our next step here is to get our vacuum bleeder hooked up to the passenger side rear brakes. We're going to work from the farthest set of brakes all the way back to the closest. So we're going to go passenger side rear, driver side rear, passenger side front, driver side front, and we'll do the brakes in that order. This system is very simple, guys. What it is here is basically a canister that we've got air hooked up to, okay? And as you squeeze the trigger here, you can hear that air. What that does is it creates vacuum in this line. You're gonna hook this onto the bleeder, crack the bleeder, pull your trigger there. That's gonna create vacuum, pulling the fluid from the front of the truck all the way to the back. We are going to continue to pull until we no longer see air bubbles in our line here, our clear line here. Then we're going to close the bleeder, move on to the other side. So really easy, really straightforward. And this is a one-man assembly here. So you don't have to have someone in the truck pumping the brakes, doing all that. You can just suck all the air out of the line. And start pulling back in. See how long this takes. Now, we have not tested any of the brake lines in this system, so I have no idea if we've got leaks anywhere. We're gonna have to check on that as we go. All right, there we go, we're getting fluid. Lots and lots of air, obviously. All right, so I repeated that process on all four corners of the truck here, and I have really good brake pedal now. So I think what I may end up doing still is having my wife or somebody come give me a hand just to double check, just to make sure I got all the air out, because I never was getting like a steady stream of fluid out of that vacuum canister, but I was getting a good amount of fluid on each corner. And I'll show you now down here, we're getting pretty solid pedal now. It's not dropping to the floor. So I know we got most of the air out of the system. That said, I'm going to jump over to the clutch system here, and this is going to be a little bit more difficult. The clutch reservoir is very small. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the canister, our vacuum canister, down at the bottom. I'm going to open up the bleeder, connect the vacuum hose up to it, stand up here and fill the reservoir as I'm bleeding the system, just to make sure that we are not pulling air through the top of that reservoir. So I'm going to see if I can make that work to the best of my ability. And then again, I may have to have somebody come give me a hand just bleeding the system one last time. So I'm going to go ahead and give that a shot now, see how that goes. All right, so got the clutch bled, got the brakes bled. This is my first time using this little vacuum canister. It works really well. However, I think I am gonna have somebody come over and just help me go through this stuff one more time with someone else manually running the pedals while I'm doing the bleeding on the brakes and the clutch, just to ensure that everything's working the way it should be. Kind of a trust but verify situation. I wasn't ever able to draw like a steady stream of fluid out of here. There was always some air mixed in with it, so it makes me think that maybe there's a little bit of residual air in there. But I am getting a nice firm pedal on both the brakes and on the clutch system, so I think that's all okay. Next up, I'm gonna fill my power steering box with fluid. We're gonna run that pump box back and forth with the steering wheel, I don't know, probably 24 times. We're gonna let it sit for a couple days and hopefully work most of the air out of the system. Then when I'm back out here next week, we're gonna be able to add antifreeze into the radiator. I'm just letting the RTV set up on the thermostat housing before we fire this thing up. So it'll be a couple days. But that said, the next time we're out here, we're gonna be putting the drive shaft in, finishing up the last double check on all the system bleeding, and then we're gonna be able to rip this thing, guys. So you can hear I got the truck running here. I've had it idling for about 15 minutes. We've got the radiator burping right now. I brought the temperature up to 205 and hit 205, fans kicked on, brought it all the way down to 185. So our cooling issues are definitely resolved. We're able to maintain temperature now. It comes down to making sure the radiator was properly burped and installing those new fans. So we resolved the cooling issue. I'm going to let it run here and idle for a little bit, get good and warm, and just see if anything else pops up while we got it idling. I see a little bit of a coolant drip coming from the front crossover tube, so we're going to have to tighten up the hose on that. After we establish that we don't have any other issues, we're going to come back and bleed this power steering system. So here's the frustration of the modern times we live in. I spent multiple hours troubleshooting this power steering system. I actually disconnected everything. You can see all my lines are disconnected, hoses are disconnected. I simplified this in the easiest way possible, directly out of the pump into my valve here, down to my rack, power line, pressure lines, return lines. That's it. When I pulled my lines off, pressure line and return line, I can see we're pumping fluid. However, at no point does this come off the needle until the wheel is fully racked to the left or the right. And at that point, pressure jumps up maybe 600 PSI. So I know my gauge can read, but essentially what that means is my brand new power steering pump is bad. It's moving fluid, it's not generating line pressure. So I've got a new power steering pump here today. We're gonna go ahead and replace that. So I'm gonna take this all apart, get the new power steering pump put in. We're gonna get all the lines reconnected, bleed that whole system. Now also, my dad's gonna be here today. So he's gonna be helping me on the last couple things that I need to do. I'm really hoping to get to take him for a spin in this afternoon. So this should be exciting. We should be able to finally drive Elsworth for the first time in almost 30 years. And man, I just can't wait. I can't wait. So we're gonna get to it today. Here is my final checklist. We're not gonna get everything in this list done today, but this is it. This is all I need to do before next weekend, because next weekend, Dad and I are taking this thing on a little cruise. I'm really excited to show you guys that. So today we're gonna be focusing on power steering, bleeding the brakes, bleeding the clutch. I did get some new valve covers that you guys have seen. We're gonna switch those out to stop the leak on the back of the valve covers. Throttle return bracket is supposed to be here today. I've got to fab up some lower fender brackets to hold the front lower fenders in place. I've got to put in the old bed fender braces. We just need to put in a few clips on the trim. This isn't really that necessary. This is just wire looming some things that haven't been loomed yet. We got to wire a horn in. After we run this thing and do our initial test drive, we're going to come back to an oil change. This isn't as critical either. At some point I need to put an overflow tank in here, nor is this Holley monitor mount. And then lastly, at some point next week, we're gonna do an alignment, front and rear alignment. So once we get all that done, Elsworth is officially done for now. I gotta do something with the mirrors too, because those are junk. All right, guys, so yesterday, Dad was a huge help. He helped me get everything bled, and we did take this thing for a little test drive. And as much as I wanted to bring that first ride with you guys, I was so focused on getting the truck going that I neglected a few things, one of which was charging my cameras. So I had one camera available, I put it on the back of the truck, and we'll show that footage here, but at some point I hit a bump, camera flipped straight up in the air. So I don't even know how much of that footage is usable. Okay. I think that's my power steering pump that's screaming. I haven't driven a stick in a manual in probably 10 years. get the seals in the doors too. Those are going to rattle pretty good. Fender rub.
Not over here though?
No. I got to kick the bottom of the fenders out a little bit, but the brackets are missing to that.
Squirrel. Nice. Seems smooth.
Smooth. Hey, my fuel gauge works.
Does it?
Yep.
How much you got?
About a quarter of a tank. So today I'm going to take you guys on the first test drive in Elsworth. Yesterday's test drive went really well. We only had a couple little minor issues. One being that I've got this thing set as low as it can possibly go on this QA1 suspension. So it is not indicative at all of the ride quality because we are basically bottomed out in the front. I mean, look how low this thing sits right now. We are tucking a good amount of rim, and we're tucking a good amount of tire in the back. Now the back is suspended, the front is basically not. It is basically bottomed out as low as it will go right now, and we're gonna have to do something about that because the ride quality is not great. But dang, look how good it looks. I mean, I love this. I love this stance. I love everything about it, but we are gonna have to bring it up. So we'll probably bring it up about 1 inch in the front and maybe a 1/2 inch in the back, if even that. I wanna keep tire tucked in the back. So we may just play around with the coilovers back there and see what we can do to get a little bit more stiffness out of the back because it bounces a little bit. The front, we got to do something here. We definitely have to come up probably 1 inch. I would like it to tuck rim like that all the time, but I would be sacrificing ride quality. So if we were only taking this thing to car shows, that'd be one thing, but we do actually want to drive it. So a couple other things I took care of this morning. One, the lower fender mounts. They were rotted out on the original rockers, and when I built the rockers, I wasn't sure where those were going to land. So I did go ahead and make a couple quick L brackets to be able to mount the lower fenders. Those are mounted up. One thing we noticed on a hard left lock, I am rubbing the driver's side fender. But that's it. Only at full lock on turning left, full lock turning right, everything clears. So you may have to do just a little bit of fender rolling here, but honestly, once we bring this up, that's probably going to resolve all of our issues there. Power steering, power brakes, all that stuff's working really good. Clutch, transmission, everything's really good and smooth there. No vibrations. We got it up to about 35 miles an hour or so, so not crazy fast, but we're not seeing any vibrations or anything like that. The steering wheel is not centered yet because we still have to do the alignment. So once we figure out caster, camber, and toe on the front, we make some measurements off the front to the back to make sure everything's good there. We nut and bolt check this thing. I will then fix up the steering wheel there and get that centered up as well. But that's about it, guys. I mean, we're so close to the finish line here. We were trying to get this thing going for a fall cruise this Sunday. It's a fall colors cruise. It leaves out of Minooka, Illinois, and goes out to Peru, Illinois. Just a local little show, little cruise in. Me and Dad and Rowdy, we're gonna try and shake this truck down on our first road trip. So it's a short trip. It's only gonna be a couple hours of driving, but it'll be a good test for Elsworth here. And so I'm just trying to get the bare minimum things done that need to be done. So in the coming week, after this video, we're gonna be doing an alignment. I've got to get some mirrors on this thing, and that's pretty much it. We'll be ready to go. I can clean this thing up. We can take it out on the road and see what happens. Very excited to do that and bring that trip to you guys. All that said, I'm gonna check a couple things here first, and then we're gonna take this thing out on a first cruise. guys, first cruise in Elsworth. Sure, you guys will hear lots of banging and clanking. That's the doors right now. So I got something clanking in the back because the back is very soft. I think we might be hitting on the exhaust possibly. This thing feels so good when it accelerates. It wants to go so badly. I can't wait to get it out on open road. Right, so I'm about to take my wife and my dog for our first cruise in Elsworth. I couldn't be more excited to share this moment with my wife. She's been so patient with me over the last 2 years, allowing me to realize this dream. So I'm really excited to take her on her first trip. So let's hit the road.
I can't get my seatbelt out.
Huh?
I can't get my seatbelt out.
They only come so far.
No, it's only coming out.
Yeah, well you didn't. Well then you.
Oh, that side comes over. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you pull this one?
Be the first person to put their seatbelt on in this truck.
Well, you know what? Rule follower.
They need some breaking in. You're probably the first person to use that seatbelt since 1992, 93, because they were darn sure not accessible.
Come on, buddy.
When I was a kid. They were all jammed behind the seat. Here we go. Gotta get some mirrors in this thing.
You're used to backup cam.
That is true, I am. Now I got a lot of suspension adjustment to do.
Yeah, it's a little choppy.
We're basically as far down as the suspension will go right now, so it's kind of a rough ride.
It's not terrible. It feels more choppy.
I'll just wait till we hit a bump.
Like it's more, I don't know, or too bouncy.
And I got to roll the front fenders.
Are you doing that on purpose? The
What?
zooming? The whoosh, like,
It's there's no seals in the doors right now. There's a lot going on up here. Why would you park at the intersection?
Church. Oh, it's an estate sale. I think he likes it.
I haven't really tested the brakes too much.
We're gonna have a lot of shots of Rowdy hanging out with him.
That's going to do it for this episode, guys. There you have it. The first test drive, the first little shakedown at Elsworth. I am so freaking. You guys have no idea how excited I am, one. I mean, you might have some idea, but two, how much weight is off my shoulders right now. It's been such a build-up to get to this point. It felt like every little thing was conspiring against me at the end here. I didn't even talk about it yesterday. Dad and I had this thing running for a few minutes. We had all the systems bled. We were just about ready to take this thing for a spin, and there's just antifreeze pouring from behind the water pump. And I thought for sure the water pump, the back cover had failed. We got to look, and it was just a hose clamp. So these little things, you know, it's the highest of highs and the lowest of lows in those moments. Like, so excited to test drive this thing, and then, oh, there's antifreeze everywhere. So ultimately, we've not had any major issues, thank goodness, other than our power steering pump failure. But gosh dang, guys, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled we're at this point. I'm thrilled with how this truck came out. Like, just look at it. It looks so good. And I am absolutely thrilled that we're finally going to be able to have some fun with this thing. So stay tuned. Next week's going to be a fun one. Next week, like I said, we're going to be down at the Fall Classic Cruise. I'm going to throw a link up on my Instagram page. So I know it's only a day's notice if you're seeing this on Friday or Saturday, 1 or 2 days notice. But if you are a fan and you are from Illinois and you want to make the trip out to come see Elsworth, come on out to A1 Classic Cars on Sunday. My dad, myself, my little puppy will be there. And we're gonna be having a good time. We're finally gonna get to cut loose and have a little bit of fun with Elsworth, and hopefully make the round trip without having any major issues. So that's the plan, and we'll see you guys there. And as always, guys, if you don't work on your projects, they will not work on themselves. Get out in the garage, get building, and I'll see you on the next episode of Cody Builds.